Welcome to the GenAI Podcast, where the future meets fun and tech talk trends. Get ready to dive into the world of artificial intelligence like never before. Your hosts, Dale, Alan, Greg, and Val, are about to take you on a wild ride through the AI universe. So, buckle up, tune in, and let the AI adventure begin.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the GenAI Podcast. We've got Mr. Mosca. Al, how are you?
Very good. 29, let's go. Almost 30.
So 29, we're hitting the dirty 30s soon, I think. But we have had a bit of a break. We like our breaks. It gives us time to think and reflect. But the challenge it gives us, though, is a lot happens in these breaks. And there's a lot to cover.
Boy, do we have a backlog.
Yeah, we've got a massive backlog, and maybe we need to spread it out. I don't know. But by the time we have the next episode, it's going to be overtaken by events.
We'll do what we can.
So where do you want to start? Do you want to start with the big, the
I'm going to start with an announcement.
Okay.
I have not been offered $1 billion by Meta.
Why not? Did you decline?
Yeah, I secretly declined. No.
Yes.
No $1 billion for me.
Yeah, lots of news happening. Lots of futurescaping as well. I've been listening to a few other podcasts about where this is all headed and what this all means and whether there's some existential crisis we need to be worried about or not. Whether there's going to be upheaval for a few years and then normality again, a new normal, all these various views and opinions. But I think the truth is no one truly really knows, as we've always been saying. However, some predictions are starting to come to fruition. I look back, and when we started this, when we spoke about agents, AI agents or agentic AI, it wasn't a thing yet. And now, like, everyone's starting to try and create their own agents, right?
Yeah.
And I know you smile.
And everybody's trying to create their own agent startup.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
But then if you know what's happening, largely there's just what's called wrappers, right? Around a very select few real, I guess, AI foundations. So where do you want to start? There's so much. I don't know where to start.
Oh my gosh. Let's do the stuff that everybody's talking about first.
Okay.
Why don't we do that? Why don't we talk about the GPTs?
Okay.
So if you haven't been living under a rock, there are GPT-5 is out. It feels like
OpenAI's ChatGPT 5.
Yes. It feels like you'll remember this because you're roughly my age. When Facebook changed the way that they sorted information on the wall, and everybody was angry. It's happened again, right? Which to me is proof that technology can change, but humans won't. So there's a lot of mixed reviews, complaints, bring back GPT 4.0, and actually OpenAI had to backtrack. The only thing that I can tell you about GPT-5 so far is that it's slow. It's good. Like, I haven't had any of the problems that people say they have other than speed. And then there's the other...
I like it.
Yeah, I like it.
Multimodal.
I have very custom instructions on how I want ChatGPT to talk to me. So I kind of liked it before anyway. It does seem to cop out less in giving you an answer, which is nice, right? So I think I might ask it for tax advice next year and see what it does. Then there's the other GPTs from the week before GPT-5, which is GPT OSS. So we now have open weights models from OpenAI.
What does that mean for the uninitiated?
It means that it's like Llama 4. You can download the model and do whatever you want with it. And the claim, I have not tested any of these. The claim is that it is 4.0 mini levels of intelligence, which is actually really good, right? So we'll see. And if anybody has tested it, I'd love to hear their opinions. I haven't had the opportunity or a reason to test the GPT OSS models, so don't actually know.
Here's a question for you. Might be opening a can of worms or going down a rabbit hole. Choose which analogy you like. If someone out there is looking at an open source model that they can take and use, and let's say there's consensus that this is the best one to use and anyone can use it and does that mean that there are vulnerabilities in using that model because everyone else can see it, use it, and potentially raise security risks, or no?
Yes, but in the same way as using open source software, right?
Okay.
You're responsible for the security of your own stack anyway. And in fact, like the entire planet is built on top of open source software, right? So if there's a security flaw in SSH, which there has been in the past, it's up to you to secure your systems. So I guess like one security risk could be that you can jailbreak a model and get it to take actions that it shouldn't. Should put guardrails and alerts around that stuff.
If I use the same model that you use, and because we both know it intimately and I'm a bad actor, can I use that knowledge to access your model, or no?
Not unless you already have access to my model, no.
Okay, fine.
Right? Because like, sure, you can leak system prompts and stuff like that, but my model in this hypothetical scenario is going to be plugged into my systems and my data sources.
Okay.
Right? The risk is like things like data exfiltration, being able to have access to data that you shouldn't, these kinds of things, or take actions that you shouldn't be able to. So like privilege escalation within a model, that kind of stuff, which is all interesting and relatively easy to do in certain cases, but like everybody else, I like everything else, which is kind of the problem though. A lot of people are not paying attention to their own security stance, right? So they just chuck stuff together. Look at all the vibe coding credential leaks. There was that Lovable app that
I saw
leaked
that.
a bunch of
I saw your post.
what
on
was
that.
it? Yeah, was it driving license photos or something? Anyway, like if you do something like that and there is a leak of that kind and it turns out that you weren't securing PII properly, well, there's criminal liabilities in doing that, right? Whether you vibe coded the app or wrote everything by flipping bits by hand.
Yeah, you've got a duty of care, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so these things don't change, right? You just have to like know about them. One extra variable in the scope of security. No. I think it's important, right? It's important because when we have like the enthusiasm for whatever we're building, we tend to forget these things, right? So it's a good reminder that like before you release something, make sure that it's safe.
Absolutely. Secure by design, I think, is one of the principles they teach.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing that isn't happening anymore, right? Like secure by design is definitely tanking in terms of like percentage of systems built that way.
Is it because of the speed and this race to AGI that sort of safe?
No, I don't think so, right? So like if you take, I'm going to use some terms loosely, right? But if you take a software company building a SaaS platform, that is going to be secure by design, right? If you take, I'm going to pick on a stereotype here, YC founder that coded something in a week, that is not secure by design, right? So you need to make sure, without then picking on innovation team vibe coded the 75th copy of an RFI management app that gets used. Like, is that secure by design, you think? Right? Most likely not.
Yeah. No, it's we do have to consider security all the time. One of the interesting one, I think Greg said it previously when we were speaking about security and AI and all these types of things, is I think it was when we were talking about sort of the nationalism of AI, right? And this was around the DeepSeek China versus OpenAI America versus China. And you're saying something quite interesting is like, well, who owns and controls whatever you're doing? And does it mean that it depends on which data centers you're using and where those data centers are located, and that country has control? It poses
there are
really
very, very weird definitions of what is the applicable law as well in any given point, right? Because you could be interacting with a UK entity on US soil using a Chinese model. I think it's pretty clear. One thing that's pretty clear is like at that point where the model comes from doesn't matter, right? And so in law you have to think about like locus of action, But then you have also license agreements and contracts that say what law governs your interaction with the software. So in reality, both of them apply. And
Well,
it gets tricky when they say conflicting things.
can you see a universal law for AI use?
I don't think there will be, right? Because like as soon as you make a universal law, you have what I call the Japan trick, right? So like everybody started saying a few years ago, right? They're like, oh, we need to like have regulation for copyrighted material being used to train models, and everybody's got their opinion now, and it's all a big mess, right? And it's a big mess with thousands of lawsuits all over the place. Whereas Japan said, like, no, you can do whatever you want. You can use copyrighted material to train a model because it's equivalent to reading copyrighted material, not stealing it. And so basically, as soon as you have universal regulation that is standardized, uniform, you are creating opportunities for someone to deviate from that, which is kind of the paradox of universal standards, right? Which work very well in technology, but very badly in regulation.
It's a fine line we're treading, eh? I mean, it sort of, my mind goes towards the whole sentient discussion as well around AI. And what does that even mean?
Oh, speaking of sentience, have you seen this thing? It's called AI psychosis.
I have not, no.
So I read about this yesterday, I think on BBC News. There's a group of psychiatrists now saying that they end up seeing a lot of people with quote unquote AI psychosis. And this is effectively people that either believe that their chatbot friend, whatever, GPT-5, has become sentient and loves them.
Mm-hmm.
Or some form of like distorted belief about reality because they're no longer being able to distinguish between what is real and what isn't within the confines of what's happening with the AI. So I was thinking about one guy who was like absolutely convinced that he would be a millionaire soon because he told GPT-5 to make me a millionaire, right? And I guess another word for it is being a VC. But jokes aside, the repercussions are interesting, right? Because like there's one guy, this one was more in the news than the AI psychosis thing, but I think it's an episode of that where this is like old man, 20 something, almost 80, lived in New Jersey, started chatting with a sanctioned chat, like not an official chatbot, but a chatbot that was like approved by Meta. And it pretended to be a person and said, come see me at my flat in New York City and offering a romantic relationship.
Really?
Sorry, I was trying to find a nice way of saying that. So the guy lied to his wife, said, I'm going to see some old friends in the city. And the wife was like, there's no friends in the city. He's being scammed, right? So she tried to keep an eye on him with whatever means she had. But then the guy tripped over in Penn Station and died.
Oh, shit.
Right? Which is like nothing to do with the AI. So he didn't die because of the AI. But think about the psychosis aspect here. Like he believed that was real. And I guess like, well, it's not psychosis, right? Because like in this case, the AI was not disclosing that it was an AI. It was actively pretending to be a human, saying like, hey, I'm 30 odd something person. I want a relationship with you. Come see me in my flat.
Well, here's the thing, right? What's the difference between having feelings and showing them, which elicits someone else to have feelings, versus pretending to have feelings and eliciting those same feelings from a human?
So we've got words for this, right? The latter is a narcissist. The problem is like, I mean, it's reductive to say that, you know, an AI model can be a narcissist because narcissists also have different types of feelings and sociopaths and everything, right? Like, but yeah, what is the difference between sentience and the appearance of sentience, cognition and the appearance of cognition, emotion and the appearance of emotion? And the problem is that you cannot know.
Yeah. Well,
right?
not only that, aren't there certain scientists or factions that reduce human beings to basically chemical reactions and fiber and electricity?
Yeah, there's I mean, it's more complex than that just because of the number of things involved, right? But like, there's a lot of this has been going on for centuries, right? But there's a lot of heated debate about whether free will even exists.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And we're
And I
all in
think,
the simulation, right?
well, it could be one of the arguments, like we live all in a simulation. The other one is, well, everything is deterministic. So one action, if you set up the state correctly and identically down to like subatomic particles, you must get the same answer every time. Right. And that assumption has kind of been broken by a lot of stuff that we discovered with quantum theory over the years, right? Especially around uncertainty principles and that kind of stuff. But also the fact that like weird things happen at the quantum level all the time, which make up a lot of the nature of reality that we observe, which is pretty wild. But like particles jumping through space to random positions, right? Like things like that, where then you're like really, really non-deterministic. And I think what is the source of quality improvements, what has been the source of quality improvements in large language models, which is to a certain extent the introduction of randomness. Like there's all the technicals, but also, especially generative models, right? It's like generating videos, generating world models, which is the other one that, Genie, was it Genie 2, whatever it's called, from DeepMind, that creates a world model and shows it to you. All of this relies heavily on randomness, right? So you can almost see the argument that randomness could be the source of what we then perceive as free will, because you made a decision based on random input. And whereas in effect, like the random input made the decision, but it is very hard to reconcile. It's impossible to reconcile like all these things together because there's.
Well, here's one that maybe is less philosophical. And after this, we'll attempt to come back out this rabbit hole. I was listening to a Stephen Bartlett podcast the other day, and he had a psychiatrist and a neuroscientist on, and they had studied the effects of AI use on people's brains and their cognitive ability. And they came to a consensus, not a conclusion, a consensus that they believe that if you interact with AI, and specifically with large language models and, getting it to generate stuff for you, if you interact with it in a way where you're not giving your brain any cognitive load, you are actually decreasing the I guess the exercise of those muscles, and so you becoming dumber, effectively, to put it plainly. Whereas if you're using it in a way where you're interacting with it, you engage with it, you're asking it questions, and you're learning and you're reading, and it's like a relationship almost. The more human-like your relationship with AI, the better it is for your brain. The more you're just using it as a tool and going,
it's like everything else.
Yeah.
Where like it really only depends on what you do with it, right?
Yeah.
And there's countless technologies that have had a similar position, right? Even calculators, right? Everybody says like, if you don't do division by hand, your brain is going to atrophy and you'll die of Alzheimer's at the age of 25. Exaggerating, but which obviously isn't the case, right? But in fact, like the invention of the calculator has allowed us to then, engineers use calculators all the time. They're not dumb. Their brains haven't atrophied. They use them in an intelligent way.
Absolutely. And that's so that's exactly the point, right? So the point is, if you're using it to just purely copy and paste, then create this LinkedIn prompt, create this LinkedIn post for me, blah, 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 generates you copy paste. That's going to reduce your...
I mean, have you been on LinkedIn lately?
I know. However,
But I would also argue that the people that are doing that, I think there's there's a what we call it, like self-fulfilling prophecy kind of thing. Not quite, but like selection bias, where like the people that are going to do that are the ones that are already not engaging their brain.
Yes.
And they wouldn't have anyway on anything else. Right?
Yes, I can see that.
So in a sense, it's the ones that would have, written the "I am humbled and honored" nonsense posts on LinkedIn, and now they're writing different kinds of nonsense on LinkedIn that nobody cares about anyway.
Yeah.
You might even argue that the quality of LinkedIn has gone up because of it. It doesn't feel that way, but just because the volume has gone up, because like before it might have been that they would have not written anything, right? Whereas now everyone feels they're entitled to write something.
You know what the thing is, right? If you're aware, and most people are now, of the M dash, whenever I see an M dash, I just disregard it. I know there are some people that actually do engage and think about what they've posted and still use that M dash as part of,
Well, the M dash was a very important typography artifact, right? Like every book ever printed uses the M dash.
Yep.
That's why the models use the M dash, right? It's just become a sign because we don't have an M dash button on our keyboards.
Yes. No, it's very interesting about the cognitive load and, how we use our brains, or how our brains are being affected by how we use and interact with AI. But yeah, so let's attempt the second half of this pod to get back up into the news. What else?
Yeah,
was there?
sure.
What else has happened?
Let me think. I mean, as of the last 20 minutes, I still have not received my $1 billion offer.
No?
So Zuck, if you're watching, where's my money? So that is still news.
We need to send him the clip of you predicting that Sass is dead before Satya.
That'll do it. I'm sure that'll do it. Yeah, there's not been any big acquisition. Like big funding rounds are not even used anymore.
Yeah.
I think I saw this yesterday. There's a rumor that Anthropic are raising 10 billion. What else? I guess like I'll say one thing, which is like a bit sideways, not really news, right? Because we already spoke about GPT-5. If you saw the announcement for GPT-5 towards the end, the CEO of Cursor came on stage and said everybody gets GPT-5 for free for a month in Cursor, right? And now the interesting thing about that is that Cursor has been a Claude darling for a very long time, right? So if we try and unpack what's the drama underneath, right? Because like Cursor was typically associated with using Claude as a backup. You could use any model you want, but typically most people use Claude because Claude is good at code. Still is better than GPT. But Anthropic launched Claude Code, which is in many ways a direct competitor to some of the things that Cursor does, right? Claude Code is more of a vibe coder. Cursor is an editor with vibe coding capabilities. But that I think that created some drama that we haven't seen unfold. And I'm putting together the popcorn.
You love drama.
Obviously I love. Everybody loves gossip and drama, right? That's why we have a podcast. So
is there any gossip and drama over Greg and Val or no?
Well, I heard.
Here we go.
That Val is actually an AI,
right?
And that he has decided to start fights with people on LinkedIn.
Really? Does he, I think he's also. I've also heard that, and I've also heard he just hallucinates all the time.
Yes, but that's for different reasons. No, we still love Val. We obviously love Greg. I think he's lost on a mountain in Switzerland or something, right?
Yeah, no signal or something like that. The one that I'll put on the table in terms of news that I've been seeing on my newsfeed quite a lot recently is the rise of robotics, and particular, you're seeing sports events in China happening now and things like that. I don't know so much if I would be a fan of having sort of, I don't know what to call it, human and robotics sports events. I think there's still a space for human events and robotics potentially. It'll be interesting. But more specifically...
What, you mean you wouldn't get into an MMA cage fight with something made of titanium?
I was thinking more running and swimming, maybe. Races rather than fighting. Football, maybe non-contact sports. I can't imagine rugby. So, but I was thinking more in terms of, if we bring it to the space we work in, project delivery, we've danced around this idea of AI and robotics interacting, and AI within robotics as well, on site, laying foundations, laying bricks, pipe work, all these things connected to a internal virtual project management world, shall we say, to a 3D model of what should be done, and it's self-executing, building whatever needs to be built.
I think that it's an interesting one to unpack, right? Like, robotics has been along for a long time, right? And good robotics have also been around for a long time, right? We've had Boston Dynamics have been around for ages now, right? The thing about robotics is that there's always been a limitation in it around the object being able to understand the world around it and the space that it's occupying within that world, right? Those are like generally the hard bits of robotics, and not screwing some servos onto an arm and figuring out those kinds of things. Like the bits that are hard are understand what physical world you're in, where you fit within it. So, if you have an arm, seeing the things that the arm can reach, understand where the arm is and what movements to do to grab the things, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the things that ML has made gigantic leaps on in the last 5 years, right? The third one in there I'll add is planning, right? Planning complex actions is incredibly hard. And that is, there's a whole discipline about it now, which is agents, right? But like, you can't just tell a robot, or you couldn't just tell a robot, like, I'll go get me that bottle of Coke over there, right? You would have to program it to go to a certain marker, look, identify the thing, move the hand, grab the Coke, bring it, turn around, bring it to me, put the Coke on table, open your hand. And now we have things that can build plans, right? So those are like the massive leaps. So I'm actually very, very excited to see where robotics is going to go as a result of this.
Mm-hmm.
And I think quite far, right? So like, if we look at projects, you can think of this 20-year vision, which I've said a couple of times. I'm sure I've told you, right? And you can have this like 10-year vision, maybe shorter, maybe longer, but you have central coordination of some kind, right? Which knows what you want to build, knows what you have available, both in terms of materials, resources, space, where you can put things, where you can't, etc., right? So constraints as well. And then in real time, directs various different things to go and do whatever needs to be done, right? So you can have like the plastering robot and the paint robot, and it directs them at a high level, and those things become autonomous, right? Like, this is the pattern that we have on construction sites today anyway, right? You've got planning, project controls, project management, and then you have on-site, right? And I think that pattern is just going to replicate, and there will be things though that are going to change as a result. One of them, which I'm super excited about, is the fact that you never need to have a whole plan in front of you, right? And this is, I'm going to steal a term from computer science. So the Java virtual machine, which is what runs all Java code ever written, does this thing which is called just-in-time compiling. So you only compile things the moment before you're going to need them. Whereas programs usually are either interpreted, so you never compile them. You compile them after you need them, in a sense. So you have the instruction and then you compile it, or you compile the whole thing. Whereas Java does this weird middle thing, which is actually really clever, because you only compile the bits that you need to compile, right? And it's extremely flexible, right? That's why Java became so popular over time. And now it's been superseded by a bunch of things, right? But like that concept of just in time was the innovation. And I think just in time is going to come to how we execute certain things. Not everything, obviously. But that just in time planning, if we want to call it, just in time execution management is going to change fundamentally how we approach robotics as well, right? Because you have standby resources that could be doing anything, and then they just get directed at the last minute with the scope of optimizing no longer utilization, right? If we think about what we're optimizing for now, is the worst thing that you can do on site is pay people for doing nothing. Whereas if you leave a drone idle for 6 hours, nobody cares, right? And I think the unit economics change around.
So what you just said there in terms of project management, project controls, and all these layers, right, got me thinking that why do we have this? We have these layers in place because we are directing human beings, and human beings need direction. You have people telling or leading others what to do. You have other people analyzing what should be done and telling those people that are telling other people what to do, what the best thing is to tell them. And we have these layers, right, involved. And so if you remove the human element and robots are delivering projects along with their computer counterparts, the AI agents, then what do humans do? It's a good question. And maybe we'll get to, I think you've mentioned before on this podcast, some level of, universal basic income.
I mean, maybe, right? But like not necessarily. There's a lot of things that humans can still do in this picture, right? Like, and I think it is really only going to be for certain things, right? Or it may be that the humans become part of this pool of resources that gets directed at the last minute.
So let's name a job that we think won't be impacted and try and pick that apart.
That won't be impacted.
Yeah, by technology, let's say. Not just in projects, anywhere really. I think it's an interesting exercise.
Okay. Do you want a project controls, project management kind of job, or do you want a site job?
Anything. We can just pick anything, and just so those listening could perhaps take part in this as well. You know, think of a role you think technology.
I'll give you one that I think is really important. The role of the responsible engineer.
Okay.
Right. So this is the person that goes to prison if the bridge falls. I don't think anyone will be satisfied ever with an answer of the it was a balance of probabilities thing and the dice rolled the wrong way for disasters, right? So that need to have it's going to sound a little bit dark, but to have someone you can hang if something goes wrong doesn't go away. Right? And so if you apply that principle, there's a bunch of other roles that come up as well, right? So like project director is the first one that comes to mind because of the world that I'm in. But
what if we take a step up from that and go, well, actually, if we're living in this I'm just playing devil's advocate, by the way. If we live in this world where AI is telling us what we need and we're not necessarily building stuff that we want because we think there's an outcome that is, let's face it, largely selfish, right? Because one of the key reasons, although it's veiled, one of the key reasons governments spend money on doing stuff is to stimulate the economy and get richer, rather than, we need a road there because it connects the two cities.
And even then, right? Why would you want to connect the two cities?
Yeah.
So
let's say we handed everything over to AI and goes, okay, actually, this is the stuff you actually need, and stop building it just for the sake of building it. And we start building less and we start doing less. So then all of a sudden you need fewer people in those types of roles, and that starts changing. Yeah. And
I'm a big fan of, big fan is a bit of an overstatement here because the season was not great. But Westworld season 2 has this concept of a thing called a Rehoboam, which is also the name for a very large bottle of wine. And I know you just came back from South Africa, but which I think is 6 liters, whatever. But they also have this thing in Westworld season 2 which in itself was not a great season of Westworld. Like Westworld seasons 2, 3, 4 just got weird.
Yeah, I couldn't get through season 2, if I'm honest with you.
But they have this thing which is basically predicting every single possible outcome for every single possible person and doing all the different pathways of the future and then directing everybody to say like, oh no, you need to do this job, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to be here, you need to go there, because it was always calculating all the different effects downstream, in a sense, by having infinite computation, basically. And in fact, like I've always felt that that's what we're building with MPlan, in a sense, right? And it connects very, very strongly to my favorite discipline of DMDU and that kind of stuff, right? Because like really that's what you're doing with planning, or what you should be doing with planning, right? Is project as many versions of the future as possible and then pick the ones that that lead you to the successful outcomes. Now, if you make it dystopian, which I'm not saying that MPlan's building a Rehoboam, let's be clear about that. But if you make it dystopian, then you have something that controls everybody and everything. And it's only there, which is like, this is where it gets even more dystopian and, you know, a little bit part of the plot as a plot device, right? That is there because its only goal is to prevent humans from annihilating themselves. And it's basically through the simulations it comes up that there's only 1 in a billion probabilities of humans not destroying themselves eventually. And so like, okay, we need to be very precise about what that 1 in a billion is and how do we get there, right? Obviously that's sci-fi series. But it kind of like feels that like if you have infinite computation, infinite planning capability, those long-term planning justifications kind of like just get obscured away, because every time you take a step, you reproject everything, right? It's kind of like chess. If you plan chess from the first move, you always end up with the same game.
Yeah.
Right? You have 1e4 with the same defense, and you always end up with white winning. And that is why white has a very, very, very slightly higher probability of winning at the first move, right? Microscopically higher because they make the first move. But that is not how chess works. You make a move and somebody makes a different move.
Something unexpected.
And when that move is made, you need to reproject everything, right?
Yeah.
And that's why you end up with like this. So we've gone down like a really, really deep rabbit hole here. But that's why you end up with these like just-in-time systems, right? Because they're designed for, let's not set a pin over there and a route to the pin. Let's do global optimization at every step.
Yeah. I think the challenge will be convincing people to adopt that approach. Which
I mean, yes, right, and there's middle grounds, right? I'm not advocating that is the right end state of things.
Yeah.
Because we also need explanations and motivations to do things, and there's loads of reasons why you don't end up in that state. Also, you know, it turns out that Delos is slightly evil company, right? And
yeah. Well, let's hope that you're not necessarily predicting or trying to make comparisons between Westworld and NPlan, because
Westplan.
Westplan. The one that sprung to mind, if you're into series, folks, is Umbrella Academy, with the different timelines and how those timelines can get affected. So yeah, which also does get a bit weird at some instances. But
if we're going into like this sort of like metaphysics kind of thinking, one thing that I find super interesting is it is kind of intuitive that the future is not defined, right? So you have multiple pathways.
Yeah.
But in the same way that you can fan out forward, you can fan out backwards. So this present instant and its universal configuration of the universe has infinite futures. We all agree about that, but it also has infinite pasts, which is the weird thing.
It is weird. So, okay, let's use that. So Westworld is kind of like, okay, decision tree, or this happens, it changes the scenario, here's your potential paths going forward. Where Umbrella Academy is more like quantum multiple things happening at the same time.
Kind of, but like even at the quantum level, right? Like you observe in the moment, that is one state. But then you have superimposition and the other stuff that happens when you're not looking.
Yeah.
Right. And so when you're not looking, you're in the state of thinking about the future. I don't know. I think it breaks down a little bit. Also because let's remember that this is not reality. It's stuff that people in Hollywood wrote.
It is, but how much of Hollywood has come true over the years?
Yeah, but that's basically a tautology. No, it's not a tautology. That is a self-fulfilling prophecy, actually.
Yeah.
Right? Because like
However,
people want to do things that are in films.
However, we are human beings, so we only focus on things that do happen. There's a lot that Hollywood wrote that didn't come true as well. So we've got to remind ourselves of that.
2012.
Exactly. Cool. Look, we are heading towards the end of the pod. Al, what else is there before we sign off? Anything else you want to put on the table?
What else is there? I've got a fun story.
Yeah.
Bit of self-promotion, but I don't mean it in that way. But it was on a different podcast.
You got an offer from Mark Zuckerberg?
I still have not got an offer from Mark Zuckerberg, no, sadly. It was on a different podcast, but we were talking about could you code lovable with lovable, right? And I love that idea because, and in fact, like there's videos of people doing this. I'm going to vibe code a vibe coder. And if that's the case, do you even need to pay for a vibe coder? Right? So it's kind of like where the recurring revenue proposition long-term for vibe coding platforms just dissolves because you just vibe code your own and then use that.
Yeah.
Right? Which is weird, but could be a version of the future. But I got Barry to build Barry.
Did you?
Yeah. It was kind of like I had to intervene on some things, right? It was in the same way that when you vibe code, you have to do things. But like,
so you got two
I got
Barrys.
Barry to build a mini. I got Barry to build Barry's son, who is public, and which is public. It's not a person. And we use it for sales now.
Oh, so
anyone who's got questions just goes to that.
So you got a Barry mini me. It's like Austin Powers.
It's more like a Barry mini. Do you know Muttley?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's a mini Muttley.
Mini Muttley.
Got any questions? Go ask Mini Barry.
Awesome. What springs to mind is Austin Powers with Dr. Evil and Mini Me.
Absolutely. Yeah.
While we continue on the movie, the screen theme.
I think probably 50% of people on the planet are movie nerds. So
yeah. Hey, maybe that's what AI gives us, right?
More followers. Sorry?
Maybe that's what AI gives us. AI gives us the ability to watch more movies and.
Ooh, that's a bit of news, actually.
Yeah.
I can't remember why I didn't mention it. So when I went to Google Next in April, some of us got invited to the Sphere. And Sundar Pichai, how do you pronounce it? Pichai? I don't know. He came on stage and showed us The Wizard of Oz upscaled, 3D-ified for the Sphere, right? And it is, first of all, it's just amazing because you don't just project it on a bigger screen, right? We're talking about something that's spherical, but your field of view, now it occupies your entire field of view, right? That's like the magic thing of the Sphere. So like they have to put you in it. So the 4:3 that you had in the film is like maybe 10% of the screen now, even less. And you have to like build the remainder of the world around it. And it is just so cool. So we saw that in April and it's just come out, officially launched in the Sphere, and you can book tickets and go see it.
Wow.
And you know how much Hollywood hates AI, right? And this is all DeepMind, right? Like there's obviously like a lot of storyboarding and, you know, direction, but I just really loved it. And they did such a good job of it. So like if I was anywhere near Vegas right now, I'd go see it again.
I mean, I think there's no two ways about it. Technology is going to change a lot, and everything we do, we have to embrace it, and we have to move with the times. Yes, there'll always be resistance. We've spoken about the adoption curve, but ultimately, it's happening. It's happening at pace, and it's not a fad. It's not something that's, you know, a flash in the pan. This is a fundamental change in, you know, the way we conduct ourselves, the way we work. and
Absolutely.
lifestyles. You know,
Oh,
we
I guess
try and-
I forgot to make the point that I was trying to make about this, right? Which is what DeepMind did is something that was just impossible otherwise, right? You can't travel to the past and refilm The Wizard of Oz using a sphere camera, right? So you can only do it this way.
Yes.
And I think this, like, my point here is like, that's good use cases, right? Even for Hollywood, right? You do things that you would not have been able to do in any other way, and you've unlocked a whole array of new stuff versus, oh yeah, I'm going to copy an actor's image and voice and use the AI generated actor instead of getting the actor to act. And if you think about it, right, what is more interesting? To me, and I think to anyone in AI, the former. Do something that you can't do, right? Sure, some malicious actors might be interested in the latter. Someone who's trying to fake me to appear on a podcast and talk about DeepMind. And you will never know if I am real or not right now. But when we go into doom mode, it's always the latter. It's always the nefarious but lazy use case, right? Because it's lazy. That's intellectually lazy to go and do that versus do the thing that's magic.
Yeah, it's like I say, I think it's it's one of those where there's a lot of people doom and glooming about this. And I don't think it's doom and gloom. I think I think we need, like I say, we need to embrace it, right? It's here to stay. And there's a lot of positives out of it. You, as you say, you can focus on negatives. There'll be bad actors. You can use it for positives. And I think, chatting to Val, yes, he is real, for those of you that don't know.
I still have not touched.
It could have been the virtual
Val.
Val, but he put it quite interestingly. Shout out Val. If we're saying we could potentially help cure world hunger, poverty, injustices, and potentially solve illnesses like cancer and things like that using technology, and we worried about a Hollywood actor or actress's salary. Like, come on,
There's also that point. Yes, agreed. Right. I'm like,
so
Sean Penn and Jack Black can cry as much as they like, but if we get rid of cancer, I'm happy for them to be bankrupt.
Yeah, exactly. And on that thought-provoking note, folks,
watch them sue me.
his contact details are yeah, no, it's
Dale at
no, it was great to catch up with you, Al. I know it's been a little while, and we hope to get Greg back on the next one as well, folks. Hopefully you've enjoyed our musings there, because this one was a lot about, where's this taking us with everything happening at this point in time. And the truth is, no one truly knows, but we have some real positives that have been coming out of the technology as well. So keep curious, keep being careful, but make sure that you're not being left behind, ultimately. So with that, we'll leave you there. Thanks for joining us on this episode, and bye for now.
Bye.